We kind of discussed the be do have chart.
Yeah.
Where with a lot of businesses, when they launch their business, their time and their timing could be just right, and they explode in value. But because their being hasn't grown big enough, they can't sustain that value for long.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So if you get what he's saying is, how many times have you seen people that explode out the blocks and suddenly create a big business very fast, and a year or two later, why?
You go through the process.
Because they're not big enough to hold on to what they have. And that's the process. That's the process of life. Is that you may be able to do something, but if you're not big enough to have it, that's why people win the lotto, and 97% of them after 3 years have no money left. Not because it's about the having, it's because they don't know who to be with lots of money.
Yeah.
The being of being broke is very different to the being of being rich. Broke people think when I have lots of money I can buy nice shit. And that's what they do. So what happens is they have lots of money, they do what they think rich people do, which they think rich people buy money, and then guess what? When they spend all their money buying stuff, they be broke. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Whereas rich people don't use their money to buy nice stuff. They use their money to build assets. They use the money from assets to buy nice stuff. Okay? And that's a mistake a lot of people make. I see a mistake in business. People start making lots of money. What do? They start spending that money. Big offices, nice cars. Okay, when there's a downturn, where's that money? People make some money, they go buy nice things. You want 180 grand. You say you want 180 grand.
75.
You come down by what? You want 75. Who wants 180? Brandon wants 100. You want 180 grand. And your words were so I can buy nice.
I didn't see that.
My car and a house and I don't know how many of you heard what I heard. So I can spend it. And when you spend money, what happens to it? It goes. Does that make sense? So the state of being. That's why leadership is a state of being. That's why management is a state of being. Anyone can tell people what to do. Leading people is different. And we all have a different journey. So I say to people, never compare where you're at in your business to somebody else. It's a very dangerous thing to do because you have no idea the journey they've walked. You know, I used to say to my wife, I have two brother-in-laws. Both of them are very successful. The one is particularly successful, and he's had his own business now 30 years. We were at school together. Left school. He started repping. He went straight out of school, started as a rep. 3 years later, opened his own business. Today, he's the HP agent in Zim. He probably controls 90% of the photocopier consumable market in Zim. Very successful. He's well invested all over the world. And for me to compare myself to him was very dangerous because I grew up in a farming family. My dad wasn't a businessman, he was a farmer. I didn't learn about business. I never lacked for anything, but my dad wasn't this business-minded guy that invested in stuff. My dad's whole idea to life was, I have a farm and I want to retire, I'll sell my farm. Well, Zimbabwe had different ideas from my dad, but that was his mindset. I have a farm, I'll work the farm, we'll live on it, and when I retire, I'll sell it, and that'll fulfill me living. My brother-in-law's dad was a partner in Ernst & Young. Ernst & Young. So he was a senior managing partner in Ernst & Young Zim. And guess what? Him and my dad had very different mindsets. So for me to compare myself to my brother-in-law who grew up in a household where his father was an accountant, where they talked money, understood money, I have no idea whether I suppose his father-in-law gave him seed funding to start his business and guided him on how to do it. Very different start. Does that make sense? So for me to gauge my success in my business, my brother-in-law's, I have to gauge my success against myself. I can use my brother-in-law as belief and to go, hey, if he can build a business, I can build a business. If he can do this, I can sit with him and ask him questions and learn from him. Not benchmark myself against him. Does that make sense? And that becomes dangerous. It's also, the state of being and the state of mindset is very different. Does that make sense? When he was 23, he knew he wanted a business. When I was 23, I knew I wanted beers. Okay, you got it. When I was 23, I was a sales rep. I was working damn hard, and I played even freaking harder. For me, that was it. I just earned money to play. And that went on for about 3 years of my life until I got married. And then I got a rude awakening that, okay, I've got to earn more money because my wife wants to play as well. So you get that. So where are you in your life? What is your being? Where are you at? And that will allow you to do it. And we'll expand a little bit on that. Good job. Amen. Anyone else? Thoughts, questions? What did you discuss with your teammates?
So I was just mentioning about how on perceived fair initially as 50-50, and that's where when you go into work, you end up saying, hey, I deserve more because that would be fair because of that. But you're not giving enough of balance. You end up not working because you're not receiving, so your value goes down as well. But then you still have the guts to wake up and say, pay me more, but you're not doing anything.
You got it. So in exchange, you deserve more. No. So I've had this business for 18 years. Yeah, I've invested a lot in this business. I've spent a lot of time. If I bring you in and I say, I'm going to bring you in and teach you how to be a trainer, I'm going to give you some shares in my business. Is it fair I give you 50%? No. Why would I want to do that? So what I do is I say, I'll tell you what, I'll give you 5% in a year's time if you deliver on those goods. Well, if you have the mentality that partners are 50-50, well, you've got a problem. Because then we're definitely going to be out of exchange. And so you get this exchange imbalance. People go into businesses and say, I want 50%. Well, what's the exchange? How do you create exchange out of that? What are you going to deliver in return? Does that make sense? So, yeah, and people do that at work. I think I'm worth more. I've seen it often. I've seen it with employees. They get an idea of, in the retail game, it's not a secret that people know what businesses turn over. Well, you don't have to be a genius to figure out that there's 10 stores, and each store does R1 million, you make 10 million rand a month. Why? Because employees in different retail stores talk to each other. But the problem is the perception is the company has 10 million. But what happens is that there's a lack of understanding of what actually happens in a business, so people perceive there's 10 million. And then they go, but I only get paid 10,000, this is unfair. But then what they don't understand is that the rent to run one of those stores is 100,000 a month. And the salaries to employ people is another 100,000 a month. And actually we're making a loss, we're not making money, but what they see is the 10 million. And then they go, but I'm not going to work unless you pay me more. Dude, I can't. And we get out of exchange. Then there's an imbalance. And then what happens, they decide, well, I'm not going to work anyway. So guess what happens? The business doesn't do better or worse. It does worse. And then people get retrenched and everyone's all pissed off. Well, who created that? So if you get that understanding of exchange, you've got understanding of exchange. Who's responsible for addressing exchange? In your case, if you're the employee, who's responsible for addressing that? You are. You want to earn more? Sit down with your boss, say, hey, what do I need to do to earn more? Go do this. Get into an agreement. If you agree, go do it. You can't come back in 6 months and say, well, I didn't really do it, but I want more. What? Because the cost of living's gone up? That's not my problem. As a business owner, that's not my problem. These guys at the back want to earn more. I don't care if the cost of living's gone up. What I care is they deliver more. Michaela, Suri, want to increase their earning 4 or 5 times, or deliver 4 or 5 times more. You do that, I'll pay you more. No problem. I do not have a problem with that. Does that make sense? But if you agree that you're going to deliver 4 or 5 times more and you don't do what's needed, don't come to me and say, but it's unfair because I'm not getting paid more. You get that. And that's where this game of exchange is so important. In business, I just observe, in the world we're out of exchange. In business we're out of exchange. With people we're out of exchange. With ourselves we're out of exchange. So if you get this, start, put yourself in exchange in business. Make sure you're in exchange with your customers. You deliver what you agree, they'll keep coming back. And there will be a stage where they will be out of exchange. Why? Because they can get it cheaper, they can get someone else or somewhere else. Well, that's up to you to react. And then go, okay, now the value's changed. What do I do? How do I address it? Add more value, reduce their price. Because that's the nature of the game. That makes sense?
So the concept of reinventing yourself, chart, you spoke about it's important to listen to your customers.
Yeah.
Just find out what they want and see if you're willing to deliver exactly what they want.
100%.
So Tony Seggins mentioned that they started off as a tracking business and now they're doing all sorts of stuff, like those cyber systems, medical stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Now, that is a good thing and a bad thing. Or it could be one or two. So what happens is sometimes people diversify way too fast to make money, rather than reinventing their business to create sustainability. So let's talk about that. Yeah. So you have to really look at it. What do your customers want? Where's the market? What can you deliver on? And then your exchange is you've got to deliver what you say you're going to deliver. But don't go to a customer and say, well, we're in tracking, but we can also do this, and then don't deliver because you'll ruin the tracking business. Because what they'll do is they'll have a look at how you deliver that, and they'll say, well, if they deliver that, they're going to do that with tracking. And they'll stop. Does that make sense? Give me my hand. Anyone else? Okay, good job. So, just going to set the context. We talked about a business. Just going to set the context of a business model that I've used for a long time. I learned this from a guy called Blair Singer. I talked a little bit about Blair. Blair's the guy that I've been working with for the last 18 years. It's the guy who I followed, who I decided why I got into teaching and training. You took this tractor. Aircons are great, but tractors on. Cool. Now we can hear it. It always amazes me. You need cool air, but when you turn on the aircon, it sounds like someone's trying to drive a tractor through the wall. Okay, so this is a business model that I've used in my business for a long time. I teach all my clients this, and we focus on it. So when you look at a business, what do you think the single most important thing in any business is for that business to become successful? Single most important thing.
Cash flow.
Cash flow. Yeah, cash flow is important. More important than cash flow. You've got to be able to do this if you want to do cash flow. Sell. Give her a hand. Sell. You have to be able to sell. Okay. Now, how many of you thought product? Come on. It's okay. Product. Most important thing is product. Okay. What about people? People are important. Yes. Brand. Okay. All those things are important. Yes. But more important than any of those things, you can have a lot of good people, but if you can't sell, how are you going to pay them? You can have a great product, but if it sits in the warehouse, how good's the product? Okay, you got it. So the first and most important thing in any business is that business's ability to sell. Okay. Now, I learned this 30 years ago. Some of you have heard this story, but you're going to hear it again. 30 years ago, I found myself looking for a job. The precursor or the events that led up to me having to look for a job, in a very short story, I went to university. I left school, I was sent to university. I didn't want to go to university, but I was sent to university. Why was I sent to university? Because my mother was a school teacher and told me that if you want to make money, you better go get a good education so you can get a good job. Anyone grew up in a household like that? Anyone told, go to school, study hard? You want to make lots of money, get a good education? Well, that was me. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to go to the US, pick up a golf bag and caddy. That's all I wanted to do. I was a pretty good golfer at that stage, not good enough to turn pro, but I wanted to caddy. So I figured, I'll go caddy. My mother would have nothing of it. She told me you can caddy once you get a degree, because then you've got something to fall back on. The words, if I remember, were, how are you going to make money out of being a caddy? Well, interestingly, a couple of years later, Steve Williams, who was Tiger Woods' caddy, was the richest sports personality in New Zealand. Fascinating. Anyway, I didn't get to caddy. I ended up at university. I was studying a degree that I know desired to study, and I failed. Why did I fail? Simple. How do you pass university? Go to lectures, make some notes, 3 or 4 weeks before exams, sit down and study what they told you, and write it in an exam paper. No, I'm not trying to be condescending, but I figured that if I did that, I'd get more than 50%. And I'd pass, and they'd let me come back. I didn't do that. I didn't go to lectures. Okay, I had other things to do. So I never went to lectures. So in order to do the other things I needed to do, I opened a couple of little businesses. So I sold stuff. They weren't actually businesses because they weren't legal entities, but they sold stuff. Because I needed to make a little bit of money so I could play golf and do extramural activities. Extramural activities happened after hours until early hours of the morning. Okay, I partied hard and played lots of golf. They were expensive habits, so I sold stuff. Where did I get the stuff to sell? Every time I went back to Zim, I brought an extra suitcase packed with cigarettes and veldskoots. Came back, and I was buying cigarettes for R1 a box, and I was selling them for R5 a box. It was a very lucrative little business. At that stage at Varsity, a beer was R2. Get it? I didn't pass. I failed my first year. Went home. I was told, go back. And this time you better study. I said, okay. I went back. Well, I did more extramural activities, got better at my business, and never went to lectures. Okay, what happened in year 2? I failed. I went back home. My mother said, okay, I've had enough. You better go to university. And this time you better study. In fact, she didn't say that to me. She sent my dad in to say that to me. My dad sat down and said, okay, son, enough now. You're going back to Varsity this year and you're going to study. I said, Dad, let me ask you a question. Who's paying the bills? He said, me, obviously. I said, do you want to waste your money again? I said, look, it's your money. I'm having a wonderful time at Boston, but I'll be openly honest with you. I ain't going to study. I have no desire, no interest. I don't want to be there. He was like, you serious? I said, I am serious. He walked out, he said to my mum, he's not going back. Oh, she was mad, but anyway, that's a whole different thing. And he said, what do you want to do? So I said, I don't know, maybe I'll come and work for you for a while. He was a farmer and he had a little mining business, so I started working for him on the mine. Loved it. Growing up, my grandfather had been a miner, my dad was in mining. I started mining, and I loved it. I loved the practical part of mining, underground, working with people, friggin' slaving away, doing a hard day's work. It's just really suited me at that stage of my life. And I made enough money to have extramural activities. And then in their wisdom, they decided that I needed to go to the School of Mines to become a mining engineer. You'll get the process. I went to the School of Mines. I didn't play golf that year, I played hockey. I found a job with the guy that captained the Hockey Premier League hockey team that I played for. He gave me a job so I didn't have to go back to the mines, so I could play hockey for the whole season. And he gave me a job carting explosives around the country. So I delivered explosives, played hockey for them on the weekends, and I never went to lectures. So I failed. I made some money, had extramural activities, loved hockey, and got kicked out of the School of Mines. I arrived home and I was told, go find a job. I was told, go find a job. Because we can't help you anymore, and without a degree, you're pretty doomed, so go find a job. So I did. I went and found a job. I went and found a job because what I understood is if I could find a job, well then I'd be fortunate enough that with that job, I could earn some income. And with that income that I earned, I could cover some of my expenses. Because now I was on my own. So I went looking for this job. And I found a job. I had two options at that stage in my life. I lived in Zim. My two options were, I could become a tobacco buyer or a sales rep. Well, I chose. Well, I didn't really. What happened is my dad arrived home from golf one day and said, I was speaking to Mike at golf today, and Mike says they're looking for a sales rep. I said, great, I'll go for an interview. I didn't even say selling what. He said, Mike sells cars. I said, great, I'll go for an interview. I phoned Mike. I said, can I come and see you? He said, yes, I'll introduce you to the DP. DP means dealer principal in the motor industry business. I went in, sat down with the DP. I obviously did okay in the interview. I got given the job. And I became a salesperson. Well, the reality is what does any self-respecting failure become? A sales rep. What else are you going to do? How many sales reps in the room? How did you become a sales rep?
Velocity.
What, did you choose out of school on Careers Advancement Day that you're going to be a sales rep? No, because it doesn't exist in Careers Advancement Day. Do you know that? The professional sales rep, I'm still to find it at school that says you can become a salesman. It does not exist. Well, guess what? I became a sales rep. My family thought I was a bit of a failure, da-da-da-da-da. What's interesting is I was always compared to my sister who had 2 degrees. She was a dietitian and had a degree in marketing. And guess what job she got? She sold friggin' vitamins. I went, wow, so she's just a glorified sales rep. So anyway, I became a salesperson. I started selling cars. I had a job. I was going to earn some income to cover my expenses. That was the game. So I started learning how to sell. It took me 3 weeks. I sold my first car. One of the most profound moments of my life happened a week later. I got commission into my account. I got paid my salary, and on top of my salary was this little piece of commission. That changed my life. Because in that moment it was profound in my life. I realized if I could sell 1 car, I could make 1x. If I could learn to sell 10 cars, I could make 10x. If I could sell 100 cars, I could make 100x. If I could sell 1,000 cars, I could make 1,000x. What it came down to is if I could learn how to sell, if I could learn how to sell, if I could master the art of sales, I could master the art of making money. When I realized it doesn't matter what they told me, it doesn't matter what I'd been taught. If I had a job or I didn't have a job, if I started my own business or I didn't start my own business, without the ability to sell, I wouldn't make money. You get it? It was profound in my life. In that moment, I made a decision. If there's one thing I'll do in my life, I will learn how to sell. I will learn and study the art of sales. Not I'll become a sales rep. Anyone can become a sales rep. I'd be the best friggin' sales rep I could be. I would learn, study, invest in the art of learning how to sell. Because if I could master the art of sales, no one would ever take the opportunity away from me to earn money. In 30 years, I've never worried about money. I don't worry about money. I don't always have money. I've made some monumental mistakes in my business that have cost me a lot of money. But when I go through things like lockdown, COVID, when business partners have screwed me because of whatever reason business partners screw you, I've been able to get back up, find something to sell and start making money. In 30 years, I've made a lot of money. I've sold a lot of stuff. But this was profound. And what I realized was, if I could learn how to master the art of sales, I could learn how to master the art of making money. And what I could then do was determine the life I wanted to live. You see, in that moment, I learned that sales equals income, income equals life. If you can sell, you can earn. If you can earn, you can live. If you can sell well, you can earn well. If you can earn well, you can live well. And then I look back on my life, and I realized that I'd been selling all my life. I grew up on a farm. When I wanted pocket money, I didn't wait for my dad to give me money. I used to go pick mangoes and sell them. That's what I did. I started my first little business when I was at boarding school when I was 16. I figured out that other kids needed money. So I approached them and said, you guys need money. They said, yes. You know what they needed money for? They needed money to do things that their parents wouldn't give them money to do. Those of you that went to boarding school will know that it was potentially doing things like smoking and drinking. Those of you that didn't go to boarding school, you may not know that. But boarding school is not called boarding school because you bored. It's called boarding school because you become friggin' bored. And you become so bored at boarding school you find other shit to do. What I realized is other kids wanted to do other stuff that their parents wouldn't give them money for, so I figured if I had a source of money, they could borrow it from me. So I acquired a source of money and started a little loan shark business, and that little loan shark business made me 60% to term. It was a very lucrative little business. Where did I borrow the money from? From my dad. I told him it was to do things that he thought I should do, but I didn't tell him it was to do things. It was a little bit unscrupulous. I don't do unscrupulous business anymore, but I was young. And that's how I started. But I had to get out and find other kids to sell it to. And I had a couple of regular clients who had very wealthy parents. So during school time, they borrowed the money from me so that they could spend money at school. They went home over the terms. Their parents gave them money. They put that money aside and came home and came back to school and gave it to me. Interesting little business until the government found out. And the government at that stage was? That principal and the housemaster, the headmaster and the housemaster found out, and I got shut down. I thought it was very unfair. I was providing a very good service to kids that needed it. And I realized when I look back, that was one of the first times I actually went out and sold. I sold. I wanted to make some because I wanted to do the things I wanted to do in my life. And I sold. You see, sales equals income, income equals. When you look at a financial statement, a job and a business, it's not how you make money. Those are vehicles for money. Those are vehicles to make money. Those are vehicles to generate income and cover expenses. What makes money is sales. The more you sell, the more you earn. You were talking about how do we reinvest in our business. If you don't have investors, you have to sell more. Because you have to generate more income. Why? Because if you sell more and you generate enough income that covers your expenses, and you have a little bit left over, what can you do with that income? You can now put it and reinvest. The problem with too many small business owners, what happens is our expenses expand, our income doesn't expand, and we continue trying to fight this income versus expenses. Does that make sense?
It does, I agree. But, you know, my business is a little different because I produce what I sell.
I got that. So what? I am what I sell. The question is, I understand that. But if you can't solve that problem, if you can't sell more, if you can't create more sales, your income's going to come capped. Or if you can't sell the product you produce for more.
No, it's not been a case of being unable to sell. It's more been a case of not being able to produce enough. I mean,
Why can't you produce
my
enough?
nursery floor is always empty.
Okay, why can't you produce enough? Why can't you produce enough?
Because there's not enough money to reinvest
Why is there not
in the
enough?
production.
Why is there not enough money?
Because it needs to go for other expenses.
Okay, so where can you get more money from?
I suppose, you know, I could take liquidity on my property or whatever like that. You know,
Okay, where else could you get more money from?
Don't invest, but I mean like a loan or an investor or something.
Okay, so if you go to an investor, what do you have to be able to do? You better be able to sell.
Yeah.
Because if you can't, you see, sales is not just about the product. You want an investor to come into your business, you better be able to sell. You have to sell them on a reason why they're going to put their friggin' money into your business. It's a sale. I go back to Shark Tank and Dragon's Den. You know the other question that they always ask people? Always. How much have you sold? How much have you sold? When people say, oh, I haven't sold anything yet. Go away. Because they want to know what you can sell. Because what they want to know right up front is, are you prepared to sell your product, and are there people that will buy it so you can generate income? You see, sales is not just about the product or the service we sell. You want to find an investor, you have to be able to sell. You know, I think it's Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx. I think it's her. The story is that she went out 165 something times to pitch her business and got told no, 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 until she found an investor. You better be able to sell if you're going to do that. So,
Do you know how many times George Orwell's Animal Farm got rejected for publication?
probably hundreds. You got it. So my question is, if you need capital in your business, if you need income that you can start taking and putting it into a liability to generate an, you need to be able to sell. Now, you may not be able to sell stuff in your business, but what else could you sell? What other businesses do you have? What other opportunities do you have? Who else do you know? What else could you sell? The problem with a lot of people is they don't want to sell what they don't want to sell. I started this training business 18 years ago. I wasn't a trainer. I came out of a stint in the corporate world for about 8 years, and I'd run a sales team. I'd run a fairly big sales team, and I trained my sales team. I used to get a book and create a program and teach my sales team that book. That was my extensive training. I wasn't a trainer. I'd never run a training business. I didn't know how to sell training, but I could sell. I came out of the personal protective industry. I vowed when I left that industry I'd never go back into it again. Well, I did for 6 months. Why? Because in the first 6 months of building my business, I needed to pay the friggin' bills. So guess what I sold? Boots, shoes, overalls to people that I knew so that I could make some money while I learned how to teach and train. Most people don't want to do that. I'm a trainer. I'm not going to do that. Money must come. It ain't going to come. Does that make sense? So you look at your business, you go, what else can you sell? You have a client base, yes? What else do they need? What else do they need? Who else do you know that has stuff that could supply your client base that you could make some money out of? That's how you make money. How are you getting? Most people don't think like me. You get that? Most people don't think like that. What they want to do is sell what they want to sell. Okay. I said to people, you want to come to my event? Yes. Okay, good. I don't have any money. Good. We'll go sell people into my event. What? Well, if you want to come to my event bad enough, go find 5 or 6 people you can sell into the event, and then you come. How many of those people do I see in my events? Very few, because they don't want to sell that. Get this. This was a profound moment in my life. I realized in the moment sales equals income, income equals life. If there's one thing I was going to master in my life, it was the ability to sell. I've spent 30 years in sales. 30 years. If there's one thing I'll categorically state, I can friggin' sell. I understand the art of sales. I know how to close deals. People say to me, yeah, but in my industry, I can sell anything. Why? Because I have a process that works, doesn't matter what industry you're friggin' in. I can sell anything. If I want to decide to sell something, I'll sell it. I'll sell beauty treatments. How many of you ladies like going for a nice pamper? Okay, good. How many of you haven't been for a nice pamper for a while? Okay, good. How many of you are up and ready to go for a nice pamper in the next couple of weeks? Okay, good. So that's where you get your face done, your nails done, and a really cool time where you have a little bit of champagne and some wine and some orange juice. How does that sound? I'll provide the champagne, wine, and orange juice. Okay, good. Well, what do I know about being a beautician? Nothing, but I know what you want. Now I'd ask, are there any guys in the room that would like to join them? Surely put up your hand. But does that make sense? People say to me, but I don't know anything. Sales equals income, income equals life. When you can learn how to sell, you can learn how to generate income. When you learn how to generate enough income that covers your expenses, you can take the extra income and you can start creating liabilities which build assets. Not liabilities like most people that create expenses. You see, most people will generate extra income, go buy a nice car. When they buy a nice car, that little nice car becomes a liability and just becomes a big expense. When they go build a plush office, instead of taking that money and putting it into an asset, that asset in business sometimes is employing a person. Now, that person could be an asset as long as they generate cash flow. If they don't, they very quickly go from being an asset to being a, and then you need them out of your business. Okay, anyone know what I'm talking about? Get that? Then they generate cash flow. That generates, it's a very simple form of an asset. And that's how you build your business. Who asked me, can I build a business that'll last? You asked me that'll last. How are you going to do that? You see, because right now, you have to do the sales, yes?
Yeah.
So you have to generate the income. So you are the business. That's great. So in 2, 3, 4, 5 years' time, you build a team that does all the sales, and they generating income, and you sitting on the beach, what do you have? You have an asset. Okay. This is what the rich do that the poor and the middle class don't do. Step one is you have to learn how to generate income. If you can't generate income, you can't invest. How many of you get? Are there lots of opportunities in the world for investing these days? Lots of opportunities. But the problem with most people, they can't invest. Why? Because they have no, Angie, they are looking. They have no money. You can pitch the most amazing investment opportunity to people. If they have no money, they can't get into it. You get that? You want to start a business? Do you need money? You need money to start a business? No, you need to be able to sell. Because sales generates income. Now, if you're going to build a technology business or a business that's a factory and needs machinery, sure. But in order to get that going, if you don't have money, find something to sell. Find something to sell until you have enough capital, until you can show someone that you can actually generate income, and then you'll start putting it into a factory, putting it into machinery. Does that make sense? No, that might take you 3, 4, 5 years. But how bad did you want a factory with machinery? Is this making sense? That's why in my world, sales is the single most important thing in business. Because in your income statement, income is generated through selling. If you can sell, you can earn. If you can sell well, you can earn well. Second step. If you can build a team who can sell, you can earn more. If you can build a team who can sell well, you can earn more well. In order to get that team to sell, you have to be able to. How do you get people to do things better? You teach them. Okay, you teach. Okay, you teach. It's a higher form of training.
Incentives?
Yeah, you can incentivize. So you can incentivize people. Have you ever incentivized people and nothing happens?
Yeah.
Because they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
You can throw money at anybody. Where does money come on the incentivize? Where does money come on the scale of what people really want? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Between 5 and 8. See, most people think money fixes stuff. It's not money. It's what money can buy. The mistake people make in incentives is they give people money. When I incentivize people, I want to know what you want. Okay, Michaela has an incentive right now. That incentive is money, but it's for a specific reason. What do you want, Michaela?
I want to go watch my boyfriend at the Olympics.
Okay, so she has to pay for flight tickets, hotels in Paris during the Olympics. Okay, what I know is that what she wants. So I incentivize her. You get out and sell. I'll help you get what you want. Now it's going to have to be some form of money to buy tickets. What I said to her is, if you hit the numbers that you need to hit, I'll pay for your ticket.
And you're also teacher, leader,
I might.
guider.
Yes, I might. This is the third core fundamental of business. If you want to build a business, if you want to become a good manager, if you want to become a good leader, if you're working in a business and you have a department, you have to be able to teach them. Right up front, you have to be able to teach that team to. You have to be able to teach that team to sell. So you all went to school, yes? Okay. So when you were at school, who did you face every day, or who faced you? A teacher. Julian, what's happening?
Nothing.
You tired?
Yes.
We're talking about school. Does school make you tired? How many of you get tired when we talk about school? Okay. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Psychologically, it's called a trigger. Okay. Okay, so tiredness is an interesting thing. It comes from simply two sources. One, it comes from because you're exhausted, tired, and you haven't been sleeping. But two, how many of you find there's certain times where people are having discussions and suddenly tiredness comes over you? It's like, oh shit, it's called a trigger. It triggers something inside of you that makes you tired because you don't really want to be part of that conversation. That's what happens. You get it. People talk about money, people get tired. People talk about relationships, people get tired. Why? Because, and Nicole, my wife, will explain a little bit tomorrow, it creates something that we call charge. And charge is pent-up emotion. Okay, does it make sense? So I'm watching Julian this morning, he was wide friggin' awake. We're talking about this thing of, I've been talking about school and go. You connect with what I say, yes? If I get it, school's not like, you're not like, hey, I want to go to university, get 3 degrees. You get it? Okay, so when I'm going back to the story, I'm watching him and he's going, oh, shit. I can hear my mother. You got it? I'm talking about my mother saying you have to go to school, and what does that represent to you? You got it? Okay, so I'm watching him. I'm going, oh, okay. Okay, and that's okay. What'll happen is if his mom keeps insisting you have to go to varsity, well, maybe he's obedient, he'll go. I just know that he probably won't do very well. Unless he finds out what he needs to do. Does that make sense? You can sit around and be a bum for the next 20 years, but that'll be tough. Or you can find out what you need to do. Once you do that, you'll be in flow. Does that make sense? Get it? You want to make money? Yeah, well, if you want to see 63 AMG, you probably want to make money. Okay, does that make sense? Thank you. Good man. You all went to school, yeah? I don't know, take yourself back to school, maybe to primary school. First day, new term. You're all sitting in the class. Who's standing at the front? The teacher. I don't know about you, but my recollection of school went something like this. Teacher standing at the front, teacher says, class, my name is Teacher Barry, I'm your teacher this year. Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Ma'am?
I have female teachers
Look, I know ages have changed, but do I look like a man?
It's 2024, Barry.
I don't care what friggin' year it is, John. Anyway, come on, did you do it like that? How'd you do it? Good morning, class.
Good morning, sir. Morning, sir.
Say that again.
Good morning, Teacher Barry.
Ah, that's how you do it, yes. Okay, because you went to the same school? Or you went through the same system and process? So anyway, so there's this teacher that stood up at the front, and the teacher said, I'm your teacher this year. How many of you, well, they probably didn't ask questions. They said, you here to pass. And I'm going to teach you stuff. And in order for you to be able to pass, you need to listen. You need to listen. In order to be able to listen, you must be quiet. And for some of us, they would say, and I'm watching you, Miranda, I've heard about you.
Actually, did used to say that.
Ah, of course. I think this is my first time around the sun. And for some of us, we were told you better shut up. Zip your mouth, man. And you can speak when I ask you a question. And then when I ask you a question, you must. You must. In order to answer the question, you must. And when I tell you to speak, you must give me the
Right answer.
the right answer based on what I told you. So in other words, if you want to pass school, you have to listen to what I tell you and tell me what I told you. And that's how you pass school. And if you tell me everything I told you when I ask you what I told you, you will pass very well. And if you don't tell me what I told you and you tell me some other stuff, you won't pass. So essentially, we go to school and we're not taught, but we are
Program.
told. You go to university, what happens? Lecturer says, here's all the information. You take a book, you study the book, you get an exam. Anyone at university try to write something different to what the lecturer told you? I did. I had some amazing answers. I failed. I thought they were really bright. Get it? So you go back and that, what happens is we think teaching is? We think teaching is telling. Teaching is not telling. Telling is telling. And the mistake a lot of people make is they think I'm going to teach people by telling. How many